we're going to kind of see this as we dive into the Harden tape, and I think it's worth doing that now. Let's just start here.
Sure.
What was most impressive to you about the way James Harden operated in this game?
To me, it's shiftiness. We talk a lot over the last year or so about him feeling like he's lost a step in some regard. And in game one, he looked like he had it back. He was getting to the mid-range, into his spots, getting to the basket when he needed to. Games 2 and 3, not so much. But when he is shifty and quick and a decisive driver willing to get to the basket, he's a really impactful player, because I think Doc Rivers has allowed him to operate in the mid-range more than he has ever really been able to as an alpha scorer in this league. And he's so damn good at it. So it's the perfect complement to everything else in his game.
Yeah, I think the big thing for me with Harden in this game was he finally got paint touches again. Being able to get paint touches is incredibly important for Harden. We saw that in terms of his passing and playmaking. We're going to focus on the scoring here, but being able to get paint touches, I think, was the critical thing here for James Harden's success in this game. And I think we saw two reasons. First and foremost, I mentioned the Jalen McDaniels thing. Second, as we're going to kind of dive into this tape here, one thing I want you guys to notice is the way that he often has Tyrese Maxey on the opposite wing, which means Tyrese Maxey is going to be one pass away for James Harden to make. And if Tyrese Maxey, a 40% three-point shooter, is one pass away, you can't really help off of him in that elbow area. You can't dig down into the nail and try and stop James Harden from getting those paint touches. I thought that they did a really good job of that in games 2 and 3. They made James Harden a real perimeter player. I thought in game 4, because of the adjustment to have Maxey constantly on the opposite wing, there was no nail help consistently, which led to Harden being able to get penetration. So here we're going to kind of dive in. This is just going to be a screen here from Joel Embiid. We're going to get the switch. This is kind of like a soft drop, but it ends up turning into a switch here on Harden, and Harden ends up bullying Al Horford all the way to the basket at the 10-15 mark. Here we go again. This is going to be the second one. This is just a side ball screen. Joel Embiid's going to come up. He's going to set the screen. And look at how Derek White has to be able to close out onto Tyrese Maxey. He can't take that extra step in entirely into the nail area in order to cut off that driving lane for James Harden, because Maxey is the guy waiting on the wing. He's in perfect shooting position. This is a kick out. This is a wide open three for Maxey. He probably makes those at 65%, if it's wide open in the way it would be here. So it ends up being kind of an ole from Derek White. And, James Harden is powerful enough. He's physical enough to where he's going to be able to beat and get an angle on Jason Tatum. For as good as Jason Tatum is as a defender, he ends up getting fouled here. Again, we're going to see this is now more bench units at the 3-minute mark of the first quarter on the court. We have DeAnthony Melton on the court. We have George Niang on the court. And I believe that Grant Williams is also on the court here. Yeah, this is Grant, or no, that's Malcolm Brogdon. I'm sorry. That's Malcolm Brogdon guarding James Harden. He is getting through this screen here from Niang. And this is with Robert Williams. Robert Williams is forced to be the primary player involved in the screen action, as opposed to being the help defender if somebody like Jalen McDaniels is on the court. Here, Harden isolates Rob Williams. I think that the 76ers did a really good job in this game of getting James Harden isolated on the wing and making it so that the help defense a lot of the time really wasn't available to come over, especially with some of the shooters that were on the court. So here, again, Malcolm Brogdon isn't really able to dig down into the nail, as you'll see as we're rewinding, because, again, he has George Niang one pass away. So he kind of goes for the little stunt more than the help, and that's just an easy drive through there by Harden. Harden gets all the way to the rim. That's a finish. Here we go again. This is just a high ball screen here. Paul Reed's going to come up involving Robert Williams again. Robert Williams switched on to James Harden. Here we go again. This is just, I think that what you'll see here is that Maxey is actually not on the court on this possession. It's Melton in for the opposite wing, which means Jaylen Brown is probably going to be able to help onto the nail a little bit more substantially there as he rises up onto the wing area. Instead, Harden just decides to hit the step back. Harden is one of those guys that I think gets a really bad rap for not being a high-level processor of basketball. I think he's an incredible processor of basketball in terms of like spatially what's going on the court. And he takes a really, really early shot there. Another thing that the 76ers did a little bit more often in this game, I thought they set higher ball screens up the court, almost a half court, a little bit more often to get James Harden in space. Again, this is Rob Williams involved in the primary action here. By setting that higher up the screen, you're forcing Williams to kind of be in an even deeper drop than what is normal. He gets downhill. If Harden's downhill like he is, it's just going to be really hard. Brogdon ends up recovering, and this is where you wanted to talk about some of the mid-range stuff from James Harden. I mean, I think Harden did a really good job here. This is paint. These are paint touches. This is perimeter penetration. And then this is a mid-range shot, but it's from the paint is the key. It's a shorter mid-range shot where he's going to be able to use his touch and actually be able to score.
Well, and the huge part about it here is when he comes off with these screens and he sees Rob Williams there, he wants that switch. We saw it in the possession earlier where he shot the three over the top of Williams. Like when he comes off these high ball screens, he wants to force Rob Williams to switch. And all that Rob keeps doing is retreating. Harden just takes the space. And the fact that he's such a lethal mid-range shooter means he doesn't have to get all the way to the rim here. He can just play the cat and mouse game, see when he has the advantage to rise into his shot and take it every time.
Yeah, 100%. And that's at the 10-20 mark of the second quarter. Now we're at the 10-minute mark of the second quarter. James Harden here. He's going to take this high ball screen from Paul Reed, a fairly good screen from Paul Reed, which is sometimes hit or miss. And again, it's Robert Williams. This is why Robert Williams didn't seem to play a crazy amount, in my opinion, in the second half. It's because there was not someone for him to be the help man and the roamer off of. And because of that, they had to play him just straight up in ball screen actions. We're going to talk a lot about this in the Lakers series as well. Forcing Rob Williams to be the man in ball screen actions by shortening the rotation, I think was really, really smart. There you go. You see just like a little hostage dribble there from James Harden after the high ball screen against Grant Williams. And that little hostage dribble gets Harden to his preferred left side, which allows him to get into that little paint floater again. Paint touches. That was the key for James Harden in this game, getting more paint touches. 8.5 minute mark now of the second quarter. Paul Reed's going to come up. He's going to set like almost like a little somewhere between a step up screen and like a normal screen, right? 45-degree angle. And then he just flips it again. He gets that little bit of space on Brogdon, gets that paint touch, gets that mid-range shot again. Note again who the big man is there. It's Rob Williams. Rob Williams as the primary man in ball screens isn't always the best bet for the Boston Celtics. You really want him to be the roamer on the backside more often than he is the primary pick and roll defender.
Yeah, and that was an adjustment that started a year ago for the Celtics. Ime Udoka always did a fantastic job of finding ways to switch with everybody else on ball screens and then have Rob Williams be on the back line to clean things up. Mm-hmm. Mazzulla seems to have continued that, and he's got to tinker with a couple things ahead of the rest of the series to find ways to make that happen again. But Philly, great job recognizing that preference and really attacking it.
And if you remember, one of the things I talked about actually in game 3 in terms of the adjustments that I loved from Joe Mazzulla was playing small more often, playing those 5-out lineups that really stretched out the Philadelphia 76ers. The other problem with a Rob Williams lineup right now is it doesn't stretch out the 76ers at all in terms of 5-out offense, for allowing Joel Embiid to stay a little bit closer to the basket a little bit more often. A lot of those plays came with Paul Reed on the court, of course. But I think that, I think 9 minutes of Rob Williams' time today came with Joel Embiid on the court. So it's a tricky mix and a tricky blend that I think Mazzulla is going to have to find. But I think that more often than not, going smaller is going to be their ticket in this series. End of the second quarter here. Joel Embiid's going to come up. He's going to set a screen. They're going to get the Al Horford switch. And this is just a sidestep three from Harden. You know, when you get him going like this, he's going to start to knock these down and he's going to really start to feel it. Again, though, this is a switch where they have Jaylen Brown on the weak side. You have Malcolm Brogdon there, and you have Marcus Smart essentially at the nail, like all the way past the nail in terms of help, because they're, you know, Joel Embiid is beyond the 3-point line and they're happy with Joel if he's taking 3-pointers. So you're seeing here again, when the nail help is there, Harden is stepping back. When it's not there, he is going to try and drive and get that paint penetration. Here we go again. This is actually the antithesis of what I just said. Funny enough, he just gets that separation on Marcus Smart at the 10:30 mark of the third quarter. But the thing I wanted to point out here again is look at how he's isolated on one side of the court with no help. Again, this is really, really smart stuff, I think, from Doc Rivers to get him isolated on his own, one-on-one, has an entire side of the court to himself. Again, you will see here, though, that he has Maxey as that wingman, where opposite wing, it's going to be hard for Tatum to come all the way in and help. He doesn't take it here. He just gets that separation from Smart, makes the shot at the 10:30 mark of the third quarter, 8-minute mark of the third quarter now. Embiid's going to set that high screen again, and that's going to allow Harden to get downhill against Horford. Here we go. He's just at the elbow. Now he's going to string out Horford, and that's just going to be really tough. And again, because Maxey is your man on the opposite wing, you don't have that nail help against Al Horford. Going to be really hard for Al Horford to be able to stay in front. He does an okay job forcing the mid-range shot, but with the way Harden's playing, that little 12-foot mid-range jumper is going to be money every single time today. Again, here we go. Emptied outside, essentially. Runs that little ball screen action. And I believe that's Jaylen Brown. As soon as Harden recognizes that this is essentially going to be an ice coverage here, he just knows that he can walk into this three because Horford's going to have to take that slight step back, walks into it, three, curtains again for Harden. 8-minute mark of the fourth quarter now. Harden's going to get this ball. He's going to reverse it out to Melton. Melton's eventually going to reverse it back to Harden. Here we go again. Maxey comes up to opposite wing. Every single time we're seeing it. Maxey, opposite wingman, makes it so the nail help isn't going to be able to come. Doesn't come all the way there. Easy floater again for James Harden, right? So here, 2:35 mark of the fourth quarter. James Harden isolated on Jaylen Brown. Tyrese Maxey again as the man on the wing. I think Jaylen Brown was like okay on Harden today. Like, I don't think he was disastrous by any stretch. But again, the Celtics need to find a way to be able to bring that nail help against Harden, or else it's going to be really easy for him to get into the paint like this.
And it's so much easier said than done. I think that we can conceptualize, particularly when there's an empty side. So they clear out the entire left wing for Harden, and all 4 Sixers and 4 help Celtics are on the other side of the floor. Like, you can more easily send help to the nail and scramble out and rotate over to Maxey and then retreat back to different matchups. When the floor is a little bit more spread, or they've got, 2 guys in each spot, it's not as easy to do. And then the other part of this is Joel Embiid on the interior, that if you just stick him closer to the blocks or the dunker spot while Harden is isolating, the Celtics can't just fully switch and rotate out and around things, because what you'll end up seeing, and I think there was a possession or two earlier where, Horford ended up getting switched out there. The Celtics are going small. They're not playing Rob Williams as much when Embiid is on the floor. So the result of that is when Horford is switched onto James Harden at the point of attack, there isn't that size on the interior that can switch onto Embiid, deal with him on the glass, take any of that away. So the Celtics all have that rim pressure gravity that they still have to account for to take away the reigning MVP. So it's not just as simple as winning the nail. You have to be aware of the next domino that falls as well.
What I wonder about Boston is, I wonder if they start doing some interesting things where they help down to the nail with Brogdon here. And anytime that PJ Tucker is on the same side as Maxey, which we've seen a couple of times in these clips.
Yep.
I wonder if what they do is they bring that nail help from, in this case, it would be Malcolm Brogdon, and then you basically force the corner man, if Tucker's in the corner, just to rotate up to Maxey to be ready to contest that Maxey shot and just leave PJ Tucker in the corner and see if that works. The adjustment there would be to take PJ Tucker off the court, but if you do that, then you don't have a primary defender for one of Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum. So you probably do get an advantage there. It's going to be interesting to see how Boston counteracts this. There are a couple of things that you could do, though, I think, that could at least allow that nail help to come again. Here we go. This is actually a small on small action here at the top. Early screen from Tyrese Maxey to try and get Harden switched on to Malcolm Brogdon. And then we've got just a drive here. This is just kind of easy from James Harden. This is one of the easier ones. It feels like that early screen just gets the advantageous mismatch for Harden. Harden comes. And again, it's really hard to help off of Tobias Harris. Tobias Harris is, again, 40% three-point shooter, especially wide open from the corners. He's probably going to knock that down. It's hard for Tatum to do anything more than stunt there. Realistically, you probably need someone rotating over from the weak side there. But when someone just gets beat off the bounce like that, it's just hard for any help defender to really even realistically get there. So there, Harden gets all the way to the basket, easy finish. Finally, another small on small screen to try and get that Brogdon matchup. And instead of just attacking it, he's going to get the Horford switch this time at the 22nd mark of the fourth quarter. And this is the advantageous matchup that Harden looked for the entire game. Again, Maxey opposite wing here. Have Tucker on the opposite side of the court to Maxey, which means the option isn't even there to give nail help and then send the corner man up and force Tucker to be the shooter. Just really, really smart, I think. Positioning. It's not even like really schematic or anything like that. This is just spacing and positioning your guys in advantageous situations that really makes it work at a high level. This is just the floater that ties the game for the Philadelphia 76ers. Really, really well-spaced, well-positioned. I like the Smart comes over and tries to double basically off of Tucker late. Make Harden make that pass to PJ Tucker if you have to, I think, especially cross corner. I think that's a really, really smart play there from Marcus Smart, but it doesn't matter. And then this one, some of the things that you might notice a couple of times throughout this game, I'm trying to find a couple here where I kind of noticed that Jaylen Brown occasionally was giving some same side help a little bit more often than what you would like to see. So is this one going to be one? No. So here you're going to see a late same side help from Jaylen Brown. He's going to come over off of DeAnthony Melton. That's like right as Harden is kind of rising into his shot, though. Not that bad of a choice from Brown, but he does leave DeAnthony Melton open, one pass away. That's a pass that James Harden can certainly make, right? There were a couple of moments throughout this game where it did feel like Jaylen Brown kind of helped same side a little bit more than maybe we should have seen. And here, what we're going to see, Harden's going to inbound the ball to Embiid. You assume that this is just them trying to get Joel isolated on the block to try and tie the game. And indeed, I think that was the goal.
Yeah, well, I think that Harden talked in the post-game interview about maybe turning this into a handoff in a two-man game action with the two of them, but Jaylen Brown initially was kind of top locked on him. So Joel just kind of turned it and went towards the middle of the floor for that elbow isolation.
I buy that. That makes sense. Jaylen is top locked here, as you can see. That makes a lot of sense. And just space Harden to the corner. Yep. Yeah, that's a good move by Harden there. I agree with that move. So, and then you have Embiid just essentially on it. And again, Derek White has to be constantly aware of where Tyrese Maxey is there. Can't really help off of Maxey to the point where you can't close out. I think that the help man here, frankly, has to be Horford.
Horford, yeah.
Not Jaylen Brown, doubling same side off of James Harden, who is on fire today. And I don't know. What are you thinking Jalen's thought process was here? I kind of couldn't believe he did this.
Yeah.
Just like kind of a brain fade, we think.
Yeah, I think it's just trying to make the play instead of making the right play. You know, my first boss that I worked for as a coach always used to say, mismatches don't kill you, uncontested shots do. And that's the biggest way of trying to get guys to stay disciplined. Like, don't leave somebody who's wide open time and time and time again, particularly James freaking Harden. I mean, after all the clips we've just watched, this guy's on fire. You can't leave him.
And the interesting thing here is that, like, the ball is like still not inbounded. This is still like the beginning of this set, right? It's pretty clear to me that Al Horford is supposed to be the help man here. They have him on PJ Tucker, right? Like, he is supposed to be the guy that is in like help responsibilities here. So they get this Jason Tatum Joel matchup, and I'm sure that Jalen's thought was like, this is a mismatch, I have to go help. But to me, this kind of needs to be a Horford help, right? Like this, I think if Horford helps earlier, Jalen is not likely to go and help, right?
Yeah, so I mean, the first adjustment that I see from Missoula is not having Horford on Joel Embiid here. And the big reason for that, I would think, is to prevent Horford from guarding Harden in space. It's what we've seen on all these clips here today. That's where Harden was successful. But Jaylen Brown in the deep corner is top locking Harden. So you're not worried about a switch when you're top locking somebody because you're just not letting him get to that point where he can come off of a handoff or another screen or even catch the ball. So I would have had, if you're going to top lock Harden, I would have had Horford on Embiid right here and try to hold up well at the point of attack because Al was so damn good in the fourth quarter, just winning battles one-on-one with Embiid at the elbows. He was terrific. He's always been that Joel kryptonite. I think this was an adjustment, maybe trying to be a little bit too cute, maybe to try to do something different. It was seriously built around PJ Tucker and the idea of leaving him. But Horford ends up in no man's land. You don't have a great point of attack matchup on the reigning MVP. Undisciplined play from Jalen helping off the corner because he sees how physically dominating Embiid is right now on Tatum, just bullying him to wherever he wants. Like, there are a lot of errors on this play that lead to the result.
Yeah, I agree. And the fatal one is the Jalen same side help off of Joel. That wins the game for the Philadelphia 76ers. After, of course, a possession where the Celtics did not get a shot off somehow. I was like kind of blown away by that. 2-2, now going back to Boston. Boston in the 76ers are in a 3-game series. Boston will have 2 of those home games. I mean, I think Boston still has the advantage here. I believe that they should be favored in this series, but I don't know. I mean, I would think the fact that the 76ers had to like really exert a ton of minute load on their dudes in this game might come back to bite them, especially given that Embiid is coming off of a bit of an injury and Harden coming off of an injury in March, plus a little bit older. I would think that having to play those guys 46 and 47 minutes probably hinders them more than Boston having to play Tatum 47 and Brown 44. Do you have, I mean, who do you think has the advantage here moving forward?
So, I mean, look, made shots cure a multitude of sins. And this is now the second game where the Sixers have won in overtime or thrilling fashion late that they kind of feel lucky to escape in some way. And they've needed Herculean efforts from James Harden to be able to win. So I have always said the Celtics do an unbelievable job against Embiid. They just have the right personnel. They have length everywhere. Horford is the best perimeter or elbow defender against Embiid one-on-one that there is in the league right now. So it really does come down to just how well James Harden plays and can he continue to make plays in space. I wonder if Missoula adjusts or what he does to adjust. He has to do something right there. And it's not as much the minutes that the Sixers have spent in this game, but they don't have other bodies and other options to continue to adjust to things. This was it felt like an emptying of the clip from Doc Rivers to just get all of his guys on the floor at the same time, and they need to just recapture this magic for 2 of the next 3 games to move on.